What if the very thing that makes you smart is also the reason you feel exhausted, disconnected, and misunderstood? You replay conversations in your head long after they're over. Not just what was said, but how it was said, what it might have meant, what you should have said differently. A simple interaction turns into a loop you can't escape. You analyze tone, timing, pauses, facial expressions, searching for hidden meaning even when there may be none. You notice everything: the subtle shift in someone's mood, the slight hesitation before they answer, the difference between what people say and what they actually feel. While others move on quickly, you stay behind, piecing together fragments, trying to understand the full picture. And the hardest part is, you can't turn it off. Your mind doesn't have a switch. It doesn't just relax. Even in silence, even when nothing is happening, your thoughts keep moving, connecting ideas, predicting outcomes, questioning reality. You try to be present, but your awareness pulls you deeper, like you're always looking beneath the surface of things. At first, it feels like a strength. Being aware means being intelligent, perceptive, emotionally tuned in. It means you understand people better than most. You see patterns others miss. You sense things before they're even said out loud. But over time, that same awareness starts to feel heavy, because when you see more, you also feel more. Small interactions begin to carry emotional weight. A simple message can trigger a chain of thoughts, a look, a word, a silence. It all means something, or at least it feels like it does. Your brain doesn't ignore details, it magnifies them, and that comes with a cost. There's a quiet kind of anxiety that follows you, not always overwhelming, but always present. A constant state of alertness, like your mind is always scanning for something to solve, something to understand, something to prepare for. It's exhausting. Not the kind of exhaustion sleep can fix, but the kind that builds slowly over time. Mental fatigue, emotional burnout, the feeling of carrying too much inside your own head. And then there's the distance. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Not because no one is there, but because it feels like no one quite sees the world the way you do. Conversations can feel shallow, predictable, repetitive. You crave depth, but at the same time, that depth is what makes everything harder. You start to feel out of place, like you're part of everything, but also slightly separate from it. And eventually, a question begins to form. If awareness is such a powerful thing, like, why does it feel like a burden? Why does understanding more lead to overthinking more? Why does seeing deeper sometimes make it harder to connect? Because maybe this isn't just intelligence. Maybe it's something else entirely. But why does awareness, something we're told is powerful, often feel like a burden? So what is this feeling, really? It's often called hyper-awareness, a state where your mind is constantly observing, analyzing, and interpreting both yourself and the world around you. It's not just noticing things, it's noticing everything all the time. You monitor your own thoughts, your words, your behavior. You think about how you come across, how others might perceive you, what your actions might mean. At the same time, you're deeply tuned into other people, their emotions, their subtle reactions, the things they don't say out loud. It's like your attention is split in two directions, inward and outward. You're watching yourself while also watching everyone else. And then there's the pattern recognition. Your brain connects dots quickly. You pick up on inconsistencies, shifts, and underlying motives. A small detail doesn't stay small. It becomes part of a bigger picture your mind is constantly building. You don't just experience reality, you interpret it. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface. Your brain is always scanning, not necessarily for danger in the obvious sense, but for anything that feels off. A change in tone, a strange reaction, a break in a pattern. This kind of awareness often develops as a way to stay prepared, to anticipate what might happen next. The problem is, it doesn't stop when it's no longer needed. Your mind treats everyday situations like they require deep analysis. It keeps searching, even when there's nothing to find. And because your brain is so good at recognizing patterns, it struggles to ignore details that other people would simply overlook. Everything feels important. And then, that same awareness turns inward. Instead of just understanding others, you begin analyzing yourself with the same intensity. Every word you say, every decision you make, every reaction you have, it all gets examined, questioned, sometimes criticized. This is where emotional intelligence can become a double-edged sword. You're not just aware of emotions, you're deeply affected by them. And when that awareness is directed at yourself, it can create a constant loop of self-evaluation. Did I say the wrong thing? Did I come across the right way? What do they think of me now? Over time, this creates pressure. Now, this doesn't happen randomly. There are patterns in who tends to experience this. People who grew up in unpredictable environments often develop this kind of awareness as a form of adaptation. When things around you are uncertain, your brain learns to read subtle cues quickly, to stay one step ahead, to avoid conflict, to understand what's coming next. Highly intelligent or deeply introspective individuals are also more prone to it. When your mind naturally goes deeper, it doesn't just stop at surface-level thinking. It keeps going, analyzing, questioning, exploring every angle. And then there are those who are naturally empathetic, people who feel deeply, who absorb emotions from others, who can't easily separate themselves from what others are experiencing. All of this creates the same result: too much awareness, with nowhere for it to go. And that's where the downside begins. You start to overthink to the point of paralysis. Decisions become harder because you can see too many possibilities, too many outcomes. Even simple choices can feel overwhelming when your mind refuses to settle on one perspective. Social interactions become draining, not because you don't enjoy people, but because your brain is doing too much work in the background, interpreting, analyzing, adjusting, predicting. What feels natural to others can feel exhausting to you. And maybe the hardest part is being present, because when your mind is always thinking ahead, always analyzing what just happened, it becomes difficult to simply experience the moment. You're there, but not fully. Part of you is always somewhere else, trying to understand instead of just living. So something that started as awareness, it becomes overload. And the question is no longer why you feel this way. It becomes something more important. So if awareness can trap you, how do you stop it from controlling your life? So if awareness can feel like a trap, how do you take control of it? The first thing to understand is this: awareness itself is not the problem. In fact, it's one of your greatest strengths. The real issue is the lack of boundaries. When your mind has no limits, it doesn't know when to stop. It keeps analyzing, questioning, and searching, even when it's no longer helpful. Without boundaries, awareness turns into overthinking, insight turns into pressure, and perception turns into exhaustion. So the goal isn't to fix your awareness, it's to learn how to manage it, to decide when it serves you and when it doesn't. One of the most important skills you can build is knowing when to stop analyzing. Not every thought needs to be explored. Not every situation needs to be understood completely. At some point, analysis stops being useful and starts becoming noise. You can create a simple mental rule: if I've already thought about this enough, I let it go. That doesn't mean the thought disappears instantly, but it means you stop feeding it. You don't go deeper. You don't open another loop. You choose to step out of it. Another shift is moving from thinking to action. Overthinking keeps you stuck in possibilities. Action brings you back to reality. Even small steps, sending the message, making the decision, moving forward, can break the cycle your mind is trapped in. Because clarity often doesn't come from thinking more, it comes from doing. Then there's grounding, learning to return to the present moment. When your mind pulls you into analysis, grounding brings you back into experience. It can be something simple: focusing on your breath, noticing your surroundings, feeling your body in space, not as an escape, but as a reminder that life is happening now, not inside your thoughts. Another important realization is this: not everything needs to be understood. Your mind may crave closure, explanations, and certainty, but the reality is Some things are unclear. Some people are inconsistent. Some situations don't make perfect sense, and that's okay. You don't need to solve everything to move forward. You don't need to decode every signal, every word, every reaction. Sometimes peace comes not from understanding more, but from accepting less. And this is where awareness begins to change. Instead of controlling you, it becomes something you control. Instead of pulling you deeper into every thought, it gives you the ability to choose which thoughts matter. You begin to see your mind not as something you're trapped inside, but as something you can step back from. And in that space, something shifts. You're still aware. You still notice things. You still think deeply. But you're no longer lost in it. You're grounded. You're present. You're in control. Because the goal isn't to become less aware. It's to become aware without losing yourself. Because true intelligence isn't just seeing everything. It's knowing what to ignore